it's time for us to find out which have been the best and the worst performing bourses on the continent in the last week. Taking us through the numbers is Gareth Taylor, a trader at Securities Africa. Gareth, always great having you. Let's start off with the picture in terms of the gainers and what's happening in North Africa, Tunisia, but it's largely a function of Qatar cement.
Yes, correct. It's incredibly slow and quite weak in Tunisia due to the Muslim holidays. I think there was only 2 out of the 5 days actually traded. But yes, Qatar cement saw a lot of the activity. There's a large local buyer who's been around for quite some time, and he managed to find an international seller and picked up a large amount of shares there. So that's where most of the activity was driven. In terms of the performance, Briat Bank announced at their AGM that the banking income will be up significantly, I think somewhere around 16%, and this is translated into around 12.5% increase in profit. So that's 7.8% increase in the name. Obviously, given the size of the company, I think it's the third or second largest cap on the exchange. Obviously, pulled the market up significantly. So that's pretty much all that was on the go in Tunisia.
Neighbouring Egypt, also they too had their Eid al-Fitr holidays. Not much activity there?
No, not much activity in a lot of the countries, probably most of the countries in the north of Africa. Muslim holidays accounting for 2 to 3 of the days, and I suppose given the nature of the markets that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 months, which has been really quiet, the Eid holidays obviously just compounded this problem. So very little to report from there.
Also a few public holidays on the go in Mauritius. That market was open for only 3 days, but you are expecting stellar performance, particularly from the banks going forward?
Yes, I think the market expectation of the banks, and we can see this in the increase in State Bank Mauritius and MCB during the week. Both of them increased in excess of 1%. The market is expecting better returns, better performance than the previous quarters, and I think those results are out sometime towards the end of the month. So that's managed to spur on a bit of activity in the market, which was rather dull otherwise.
Markets that need a little bit of traction. Nigeria, it's quite a complicated one here because results have been generally good. We are seeing movement on the recapitalization of banks, but investors have been holding back, and we're told in the last week investors have lost something in the region of 121 billion naira. Volumes very thin, valuations lower. Yes,
the market has struggled for quite some time now. It was largely driven by the banks last week, as is generally the case. We did, however, see somewhat of a rally on Friday. However, when I left the office earlier, it looks like most of the gains have been given back. I think most of the issues and most of the concerns in the market are around the pending deadline, which is the end of the month for the recapitalization of the distressed banks. Having said that, last week there were announcements by Access Bank, which provided some clarity in terms of their merger with Intercontinental Bank. So yes, hopefully this will spur some sort of activity, some positive sentiments, and perhaps if we can see a couple more of these mergers and capitalizations of the distressed banks in the next couple of weeks, going on from next month towards the end of the year.
Yeah, particularly because the new CEO of the stock exchange has also introduced some interesting products, for instance, saying that the market will now be looking at short selling products and those kinds of things. So trying to make the market deeper, more dynamic. Together with all the restrictions being lifted on foreigners owning government securities, should all of this buoy this market? Are we going to see like a significant recovery in Nigeria, do you think?
In theory, we've seen some changes over the last while. We've seen the trading hours increase too, which was probably around 6 months ago, if my memory serves me correctly. So I think all the changes in terms of the government, in terms of the finance minister, in terms of the structures at the exchange, everything is improving from a positive point of view, at least from an international investor's perspective. I just think that what's happening globally is just weighing too heavily on the market, and we're not going to see any immediate effect from all these positive changes, but hopefully going forward the platform is laid.
Okay, let's turn our attention further south, and Zimbabwe still making headlines. Proposals for the indigenization of some of the banks and particularly the mining companies rejected. What bearing has that had on the market, because some of the more prominent industrials haven't really suffered?
Yes, I think there was an initial scare when these announcements were made. I think it was probably 2 weeks ago now. In effect, there wasn't actually much new in terms of the restrictions. It's probably just more of public spat between the Reserve Bank governor and the minister responsible. But yes, going forward, I don't see, and despite the positive commodity performances around the world, the mining sector specifically in Zimbabwe performing too well until they can attract foreign capital to fund all of these projects. As we know, mining is incredibly capital intensive sector. So from that side, no, we don't anticipate any positive movements. But yes, from the industrial side, there has been some positive results coming out. Most of the banks performing really well. So yeah, the industrial side is doing quite nicely.
Any more things in Zimbabwe to continue with the persistent negative press, the fears that have existed? You know, we are seeing mergers and acquisition. I remember the Cisco deal was fairly prominent, but already rumours about the health of the president.
Yes, I think these rumours have been circling for ages now. I saw today there were rumours that it might be confirmed that he's actually got prostate cancer. Hopefully this doesn't cause even more panic in the market. There's issues around succession planning, etc., which haven't been made clear to the public, to the general investor. So hopefully they can manage this carefully and provide some sort of succession plan for investors' peace of mind, should we say.
And in neighbouring Zambia, anything really? It's been quiet. We're waiting for elections.
Yes, Zambia performed negatively in general last week. This was largely skewed due to the performance of Zam Sugar. The counter is one of the bigger counters on the bourse, around 20%, I think. So this weighed down heavily. But yes, generally I think in Africa elections are seen with angst in terms of the investor. I think Zambia is fairly unique in that the past elections were rather peaceful, and everything thus far would suggest that this is going to be the case towards the end of the month. I think it's the 20th of September.